Welcome to the National Institute for Innovation and Technology Accelerator Series. Virtual forums designed to help educate and inform individuals and organizations about the services and solutions we provide. Today's virtual forum is Bridging the Gap, Semiconductor Industry Trends and a Blueprint for Building the Talent Pipeline. This event is sponsored in part by the Semiconductor Industry Association. Now, please welcome the Institute's President and CEO, Mike Russo.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to be here for a conversation about current trends and challenges in the semiconductor industry and how we can help with solutions to develop the industry's workforce. Our institute is responsible for executing the national strategy to develop the talent pipeline for the semiconductor industry. Through our Center for Skills-Based Learning, we're developing and scaling the infrastructure and programs required to engage a broader section of the population and provide a pathway to succeed in related careers. Through our programs, employers are better able to attract, more efficiently train, retain, and advance individuals, ultimately meeting their workforce requirements. To achieve this, we establish what we call career opportunity hubs, working with regional stakeholders to ensure the public education system has a strong skills-based component, aligning course curriculum with job requirements and connecting students, adults, and returning service members and their families with careers and learn and earn opportunities through registered apprenticeships. Employers, training providers, and individuals seeking jobs or career advancement all come together through our National Talent Hub, a state-of-the-art dynamic tool designed to align job requirements, course curriculum, and individual skills profiles in real time. The ability to learn while you earn through registered apprenticeships is an important component of the strategy to build the talent pipeline. Many individuals may not be able to, or inclined to, pursue degrees, and they're often locked out of careers in tech and advanced manufacturing. Our growing Apprenticeships in Nanotechnology and Semiconductor program, or GAINS, is an innovative competency-based versus hours-based registered apprenticeship designed for the semiconductor sector and broader nanotechnology industries and related supply chains. We are scaling GAINS throughout the nation under a contract with the U.S. Department of Labor, and when you sign up for GAINS, you get a full suite of services, programs, and support infrastructure. We've also created a national network of community colleges that provide required technical instruction for registered apprenticeships and career advancement. Our community college partners are key in expanding registered apprenticeships. We have engaged 79 employers in 17 states and have over 4,500 apprentices committed to our GAINS program, with an 83% DEI participation rate. And community colleges play an important role in this success. Just 2 weeks ago, we launched SAMTAP, the Semiconductor and Advanced Manufacturing Technician Apprenticeship Program, which is specifically designed to support state efforts to establish semiconductor registered apprenticeships. Through SAMTAP, states can leverage the federal funds and expertise available through the Institute to establish registered apprenticeships and build out their workforce ecosystems. Our team at the Institute is a unique, diverse set of individuals with a high level of subject matter expertise. We come from the industries that we work with, training and education, and in establishing and administering innovative, competency-based registered apprenticeship programs. We are a not-for-profit organization. We're passionate about our mission, and we're here to help. Today, we're joined by several individuals that are equally passionate about this work. They'll be introduced shortly by our moderator. However, I'd like to personally thank them for their participation and for all that they do.
Please welcome our moderator for today's event, Michelle Layden-Lee. Michelle is a technology industry veteran who has held executive leadership roles with Intel, Qualcomm, and GlobalFoundries. She is the founder and CEO of Layden-Lee Consulting, which provides executive communications, global marketing, and brand advisory services to the technology industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the National Institute for Innovation and Technology's Virtual Accelerator Series. We're kicking our series off today with a panel discussion focused on a very important and timely topic, and namely, that is, how do we fill the talent pipeline gap that exists in the U.S. domestic semiconductor and advanced manufacturing industries? My name is Michelle Layden-Lee, and I'm delighted to be the moderator for today's panel. I'd also like to introduce you to our panelists. First, I'd like to introduce Eric Hadland, Director of Technology Policy at the Semiconductor Industry Association, where he's responsible for SIA's research, development, and technology activities, as well as its education and workforce development efforts. Eric, welcome.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Also joining us is Martha Panji, who is the Director of National Apprenticeships at the Institute. Martha leads the Institute's team supporting programming related to developing the nation's workforce for strategic industry sectors such as semiconductor and advanced manufacturing. Martha, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'd also like to introduce you to Deb Furlong, Head of Business and Workforce Operations for the City of Phoenix. Deb has been a leading advocate for helping individuals overcome barriers to employment. She's worked with San Diego County in California and Maricopa County in Arizona to develop job readiness training and pre-apprenticeship programs for re-entry constituencies from the court system. And now she's bringing all that expertise to the City of Phoenix. Deb, it's a pleasure to have you on the panel today.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
And I'm also pleased to introduce you to Robert Weinman, Director of Workforce Innovation for the Institute. Robert has extensive experience in technical workforce development for advanced manufacturing, having worked with both community colleges and universities, as well as employers, giving him a unique understanding of how to best facilitate stronger interactions between employers, talent, and academia. Robert, welcome.
Thanks, Michelle. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So let's get started. Now, we've all seen the headlines, and we know that there's a widening shortage of skilled labor in the semiconductor and manufacturing technology industries. A recent study conducted by the Semiconductor Industry Association and Oxford Economics found that the U.S. federal government investment in domestic manufacturing, as well as industry growth, will result in an additional 115,000 jobs being added to the U.S. by 2030. But there aren't enough skilled workers to fill those jobs. And of those jobs, there's a large majority of technician openings. In other words, jobs that don't require a four-year college degree, but rather trained technicians. So first, I'd like to talk to Eric. Eric, I just mentioned the survey that SIA did with Oxford Economics that resulted in a report that the SIA has on its website called Chipping Away Assessing and Addressing the Labor Market Gap Facing the U.S. Semiconductor Industry. What was the reaction to the results of that research, and how is SIA and its members addressing the talent pipeline gap?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So I'd say the main reaction has been that we've got some work to do here. But I'm a big believer in the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. And I think bringing some understanding and definition to this challenge that everyone knows is on our horizon has actually been very appreciated by folks. Folks are glad to have some numbers that can inform strategy. And the first thing I want to highlight is that within that 115,000 jobs created, we also identified about 67,000 that are at risk of going unfilled. And that's calculated under a business as usual scenario. The first thing I want to say here is that we're not under a business as usual scenario. Workforce development for the semiconductor industry is a priority for everyone at federal, state, and local levels. And there isn't a day that goes by where I'm not talking to folks in meetings from all over everywhere who are thinking about how they can benefit this workforce development challenge that we've got. It's also being infused into all parts of the CHIPS Act. CHIPS applicants that make applications from companies need to speak to their workforce development strategies. And even the R&D programs are not just turning out exciting science, they're also responsible for developing workers using those research dollars. So this is really being engaged at all levels, and I personally find that encouraging. When we look at numbers like 115,000, it can be easy to be overwhelmed. Even when we look at numbers of 67,000, it can be easy to be overwhelmed. We need to break this down into parts. And when we do that, I think we find some additional agency. This is a diverse problem, and everyone has a unique role to play here, and no one owns the entire problem. I think the task in front of all of us is to identify the pieces of the puzzle that we're responsible for and then be faithful in efforts that will actually move the needle within our own sandbox. But we really do need to divide and conquer. It's diverse in that we don't need 115,000 of the same workers. We need everyone from technicians who are coming out of apprenticeships or two-year programs, all the way up through postdoctoral research fellows. And we need everyone in between: technicians, engineers, scientists, computer scientists, etc. It's also diverse in terms of geography. Some states have tens of billions of dollars in new investment coming in for manufacturing facilities. Others have none. The makeup of what kinds of workers are needed in each state differs. Texas is putting in lots and lots of new manufacturing sites, everything from substrates, manufacturing silicon wafers, to leading edge logic manufacturing and analog devices, and even semiconductors for autos. In Colorado, they have a much bigger focus on their design presence, although they do have some manufacturing there as well. Well, guess what? These are all different skill sets, and the programs that Texas A&M is putting into place, and they are putting programs into place, have to be different than what CU Boulder puts into place and different than what Maricopa Community College puts into place. Although I will let Deb focus more on Maricopa Community College, since I know that's her background. Different manufacturers have different ways of running their fabs. Samsung has a different composition of workers they use than Analog Devices does, and the hiring criteria that they use reflect all of that. So new facilities need to match the workforce needs for facilities in their own backyards. And companies are already working with state and local education and workforce partners to get this done. There's a lot of work, but we're not at the beginning. We also have to do our part when it comes to coordination. We're a big industry with a very diverse value chain. The left hand doesn't always know what the right hand is doing, and companies need to be getting in touch with, and already are, with community colleges, universities, even high schools, to let them know what their needs are going to be and who they're looking for. So I would encourage folks to get in touch with your local authorities, get in touch with your local workforce boards, and K-12 education programs even, to start talking about the promise of careers in your industry. I also want to talk a little bit about where we might look for some of these new workers and some efforts that I'm seeing in this regard. Bringing in groups that have not historically been adequately represented in the semiconductor industry, such as women, certain minority groups, also tend to be underrepresented. These are all demographics that we really need to be looking to welcome them into our industry and share in the promise of a career in semiconductors. We also need to think about upskilling and reskilling workers and doing it in a way that works with their life, even if they're coming from a mid-career point. So that they don't need to quit their jobs, move away from their families, go to school for some number of years and stop earning. We need to come up with new programs that are actually going to fit the lifestyles of folks who are trying to enhance their professional development. Another thing I want to talk about briefly is that this is not uniquely a semiconductor challenge. This is a STEM problem writ large. We know that other sectors of the STEM industry are also facing workforce development challenges. But there are a lot of folks in the education pipeline. So maybe our question is not only how do we get more people to major in chemistry. Part of our task is also going to be looking at those who are already in programs and just trying to get a larger slice of the pie so that those current science students are actually aware of the careers in the semiconductor industry and aware of the opportunities that may match really well with what they'd like to do in their career. This next generation of workers cares an awful lot about the impact of their career. And the semiconductor industry has impact in spades. We're everywhere. We're a foundational technology and an enabling technology in everything from AI accelerators to energy efficiency and electrification to national defense. We need to be making those connections with this next generation of workers so that they're aware of what their careers could actually result in society. There's a lot to do that we should not wait to get started on. One tendency I've seen from a couple of folks, and I think it's actually a dangerous one, is sort of waiting to solve some grandmaster Rubik's Cube of how many workers we're going to need, where we're going to need them, when we're going to need them, what's going to happen with high-skilled immigration in Congress. And they want to see this thing from beginning to end before they get started pulling a trigger on anything. And we don't have time for that kind of approach. We need to get started with things that we know are good ideas now and see how much traction we get. We need to put our workforce analysis into motion every year and refresh those numbers so that we know how effective our interventions are being. In places where we're coming up short, the question is going to be how we ratchet up those efforts to upregulate. In places where we're getting more traction than we anticipated, it might be okay for us to reallocate some of those resources to parts of the workforce development problem that are more sluggish. So to put a bow on all of this, we need to make bigger numbers smaller and figure out how to digest this into pieces that we can actually move the needle on in our own backyards. We also need to be pressing harder on demographics who are already in the field, but also increasing participation for demographics who are maybe looking for opportunities in a terrific industry. And lastly, I want to create a little bit of context here and remind folks that the industry, semiconductors, has been meeting workforce needs for a long time. At every site where there's a brand new facility, we've had to work with schools who are in the business of developing talent to develop the talent that we need for our new operations. It's not to minimize the challenge. We've got a lot of work to do here, and we don't need to do just one or two of these. We need to do about 50 in quick succession, but we're not operating without a playbook and some history of success. So hopefully that's some cause for optimism, or at least some context. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Eric. Really excellent points. I do want to remind the audience to stay tuned because at the end of our conversation, we are going to have time for you all to ask some questions to our panelists. You can do that via the chat function, so get ready with those questions. And Eric, thank you. I think you made some excellent points, especially about semiconductor really being the foundation of everything today. And it really is a great industry if you want to make impact. And Martha, I'm curious, I'm going to turn my next question to you because you've been going around the country, traveling around, talking to semiconductor and advanced manufacturers about this problem, about the talent gap. Can you talk a little bit about the conversations you've been having, what you've learned, and what the Institute is doing to help bridge this gap?
I can, but first I want to comment. Eric said something that I think is so important for all of us is that, we call it building the plane while it's taking off. We have to start today and we have to understand that we don't have to have all the answers. We just have to have a team who's ready to go to work and is willing to put the time and effort in to make and build on successes that have already happened.
Martha, to interject quickly, I've also heard this referred to as building the plane while it is falling out of the sky. And I don't know how this feels to you, but it's got to be one of those two.
But back to your question, Michelle. So the Institute has recognized that traditional trades-based apprenticeship programs are not generally fitting advanced manufacturing and certainly not fitting in that semiconductor sector. And as such, we as an organization have really spent the last few years developing and refining more innovative competency-based programs that closely align with the needs of the nanotechnology semiconductor space holistically. We have focused on foundational skills, and the reason is because we know that apprentices really need a high level of transparency in their competencies and their skill sets so that in this ever-changing economy, ever-changing world of technology, that they are prepared to work in any sector of semiconductor, nanotechnology, or advanced manufacturing, not just the one that they've been hired to today. We work with our employers and our academic providers to really prioritize on-the-job training and related technical instruction. We want to get the quickest net gain for both the employer and the apprentice. One other thing I think, and Eric hit on this as well, is we can't address one part of this sector or one part of the career ladder. We really have to look at the entire career ladder, not just gateway, not just mid skills. And I started to think about like the number of engineers who maybe will need to be deployed from other sectors to help support and design these new chips that are going to be manufactured here. They're going to need upskilling, but not new degrees. And they're going to have on-the-job training in the new fabs where they experience working with the tools, the terminology. All those things are going to be important to make quick changes. And we really saw during COVID, we don't have the luxury of time on our hands. We really need to move forward. Another innovation that the Institute has really been working on is working with the Manpower Group. We are taking their contingent workers and really aligning the training and education that they get as they acquire it during their work as the contingent employee. We're recording it, we're quantifying it against current apprenticeship standards so that those individuals can transition into apprenticeship roles with new employers with advanced standing in the apprenticeship realm. I think Mike Russo said our institute is very unique in its makeup. We have individuals who really grew up through the semiconductor sector. We've led things like government affairs, training and development. They really have firsthand knowledge of the day-to-day operations, not only of the fabs themselves, but also those companies that make up the supply chain in the sector, and they're very important too. We also have engineers who understand process in the plants and can identify not just the KSAs, but they can prioritize those KSAs and really accurately gauge the depth of knowledge necessary to do some of those jobs. So we bring together training, vocational and technical education, engineering. All of these things help us to plan, but what they also help us to do is to execute with stakeholders and regions and make sure that we're bringing people to the table that can not only help to plan for today, but they'll help support and sustain these programs moving forward in partnership with the employers after the program is actually established. Our consortium of community college partners is second to none. The people that have come to the table really want to understand what do they need to do today that's going to help prepare their students for the jobs of today and of tomorrow, but also those individuals who are in learn and earn models. What are they going to do to help prepare them? And as Eric said, to kind of be cognizant of the lifestyle of someone who is working full time and has a family and needs to go to school. How are we addressing those? And we work, especially in that technician space, to help fill seats in level 1 classes that really already exist at our community colleges, and they're doing a great job. The more we can do to integrate into those spaces where there might be gaps in curriculum, but utilize things that already exist, it really is an effective way to leverage all the good work that's been done in the past. I think one of the most challenging things that we as an institute have to kind of push up against is explaining in a more simplified way what the long-term value of an apprenticeship is. And we have a process now where we are utilizing job descriptions from our employers for their gateway roles, but then also for those ladder up roles. And we use our national talent hub and create very, very detailed job profiles and career ladders. And that has given our employers, and that's in operations, in HR, everyone really who's in the system, a way of graphically representing where somebody can come into an organization and what the blueprint is for their ability to move forward. The other thing I think it does really, really well is a lot of times we have individuals who come into jobs and they say, well, where and when am I going to be able to move to that next level? We really have it down to a competency based description where you can actually show someone these are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you need today. But where this happens, that's the pivot point, and that's where you go to the next level. And that's where you choose between maybe 1 or 2 jobs that are at that level before you move up. And manufacturing is still, I don't care what kind of manufacturing you're in, it is still the industry sector where it is not uncommon for an individual to start in a gateway role and retire from that same organization in a leadership role 20, 30, and 40 years later. And I think that that's a really important thing for us to share. We have national and state level relationships with our apprenticeship offices. We work very closely with both the SAA states, the state apprenticeship agencies, and the Office of Apprenticeship States to ensure that the programs we are helping to develop meet the requirements established within each state and each region. One of the things we're asked about frequently is funding, and our team keeps abreast of funding nationally that becomes available state by state. We have incentive funding of our own through our USDOL contract that we're able to deploy. But really, from a funding standpoint, we see mostly that our employers really need that seed money to start those programs and to really jumpstart them and get them going quickly. After that, a lot of them can be sustained through existing training and development budgets, local dollars from their manufacturing extensionship partners, from their WIOA dollars. But getting it started is really one of the things that we have to look at. So we do like that there is a lot of money coming out that will help organizations to stop. And I think my last thing is Mike Russo talked about our SAMTAP program. That's the Semiconductor Advanced Manufacturing Technician Apprenticeship Program. And that's working with our existing USDOL contract and really leveraging that to work with states who are struggling to establish programs and develop their own talent pipeline. The initiative is designed to be collaborative with state apprenticeship offices, with commerce departments, with education. We want to work together. We want to offer our intermediary services, and they're free of charge, to help develop innovative, competency-based programs that work in a region. There's not a one-size-fits-all program that goes across the country. And again, Eric mentioned that before. What you need in Colorado is not what you need in Phoenix, and it's not what you need in Texas or New York State. So we have to be very cognizant of the fact of working with those, working collaboratively with those organizations to make sure that they have the support they need to grow something that will be effective long-term in their community and really build a regional talent pipeline that serves not only the semiconductor space, but really advanced manufacturing as a whole and lifts up the entire community. So if you are interested in learning more about SAMTAP, I really am encouraging you to reach out to one of the members of the NII team. We're here to help. That's our role. Mike likes to call us the posse you never knew you had. It's true. We're here to do what we can do to make sure that our mission is your mission and that we are doing what we can really to grow this sector holistically. So with that, I'm passing back to you, Michelle.
Martha, thank you. There was an awful lot of really great information in there. I do want to point one thing out that you talked about, because I think it's really important for our audience to know that the Institute is actually supported by the U.S. Department of Labor. And that does say a lot about all of the great programs that you're doing around this talent gap. And I think you made a really great point also about the fact that advanced manufacturing and semiconductor is an industry where someone can come in on the ground floor and not just have a job, but really grow a career.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, really just very important. Actually, that gives us a really nice segue over to Deb. And I do want to turn it over to Deb now with a question, because Deb, one of the things that you've been working on is this idea of re-entry and training programs that not only help bridge this talent gap, but really bring high-paying jobs and careers to these diverse constituencies who may many times be overlooked and also may not know about this type of industry and these types of opportunities. I'd love you to tell us a little bit about your really good work and what you tell companies who might be considering these types of re-entry programs in terms of expanding their talent pool search to include these types of unrepresented constituencies.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about reentry. Reentry is a community effort. And I think if there's one thing to take away today is that we all need to be involved in that process, right? When folks are coming out, if we want to have safer communities, providing opportunities so that they can get good wages and take care of their families I often remind people that 1 in 4 of us are impacted by those in the justice system, right? So it's no longer those people. There's people within your sphere that is a direct connection. And so as we view that, um, knowing that these are our aunts and uncles, our moms and our dads, and that we have a community responsibility to provide a pathway for them to come back. In San Diego, I had the opportunity to work with a great organization called Second Chance, um, Second Chance San Diego, and there we had some redevelopment funding or some development funding that came to build a pre-apprenticeship, and we didn't quite know what we were doing. I wish I knew Martha and Robert back then. But we, did some research and built this amazing apprenticeship program in the construction trades was the funding that we had through this development. Well, we did all the right things, we thought, right? We had one meeting with employers. There's your key. We had one meeting with employers and thought we had built what we needed to do. Oddly enough, no one was getting hired. However, we would take our participants to the union hall and get them signed up. And then they were often the ones first pulled to join the apprenticeship programs after the employers had time to work with them. And I believe that our key in that, as we decided to do more backdoor in with our participants, helping us talk with those employers, and then because that trust was built there, right? To identify what we were doing that was successful. And quite honestly, we were helping people get their GEDs and we were exposing them to tools. But one of the things that we did that made the difference was our work readiness. We did a 4-week work readiness program. And I'm going to pause here for a minute because I know that's a hard one. So 4 weeks is a long time to think about someone not being able to get to work. But what we found is in that 4 weeks, we could mitigate any of the issues that might come up, like testing, parole requirements, probation requirements, understanding how they were going to get their kids to school on a bus and then on a bus to get to their job and manage all of that. Heck, even things like taking a break, coming back from break on time, planning for lunch. And if you didn't pack your lunch, how that impacts you in the afternoon. And so those 4 weeks really gave us the opportunity. And that was really our key to success, we found. And as we continue to do studies with employers, that work readiness is an important piece and allowing that space. And so I encourage individuals that are wanting to work in this space to get with a good organization that does work in this space. You don't have to be an expert at it. If you're interested in working in this space, they're all going to want to talk to you, right? Because employment is our number one goal and one of the best ways to reduce recidivism, right? So if you're interested, we're going to find a pathway to support you, and really, which is supporting us, supporting our communities, and our kids. And so with that, I'm so sorry, Michelle. Go ahead.
No, I was going to, excuse me for interrupting, but I wanted to ask you a little bit of a follow-up there. I thought you made some excellent points. And, I know that you're now working with the Institute as part of your current role in Arizona and some of the first programs to establish the programs there. Can you talk a little bit about your experience and what you'd say to employers now in terms of how to establish these types of programs in semiconductor and advanced manufacturing?
Yes, thank you, Michelle. And that's where I was headed. Get connected with a good organization that's doing work in this space. Share with them what your needs are, and they're going to develop a program that works best for you. But in that, if this is going to be a place that you're interested in, acknowledge some of the things and create space to work in this with this population. Again, creating room for obligations and requirements that they have by the court, and understanding that that doesn't take away from all the benefits that come with it. And I just one other about this, especially when we think about apprenticeships, as we began to work in this space, and almost every single one of our participants that wanted that got it. What we saw was an incredible investment and change in life. Recidivism was so low for all of our individuals that actually got into an apprenticeship program. And there was something powerful, especially with this population, and I would really say underserved in general, that I think apprenticeship offers. Eric spoke to it, and I was so thankful. He's like not even in my world, but he said, understand the lifestyle that people are in. So imagine you've made different choices in your life. or things came at you very differently because of way you grew up or things that happened, right? And now I'm in this space. How do I jump out of my life to get education and still pay my mortgage and still feed my kids? How do I still do that? And the power of apprenticeships is allowing the education and the training and the pathway, especially because when you work with reentry, respect is vital. And you as an employer are respecting them. I remember one of my first participants coming in and sharing his excitement about apprenticeships. And he said, they believe in me, Deb. They're going to invest in me. They're going to invest in me. And so when you're someone that's taking from the community all the time, and then you have in this place that you want to give back and someone believes in you, it's powerful. Those participants are incredibly successful. I continue to keep up on how they're doing. So I would really just ask for you to put a different lens on. How can we be a part of reentry and reducing recidivism to create safer communities? And with unemployment so low, if we do not tap into this population, it could really hurt us, right? So let's think about how it could benefit the overall. Thank you for that question, Michelle.
Of course, Deb, and it's a really great point about investing in the employers, investing in their employees, employees or job seekers investing in their own career. And somebody who grew up in this career and spent my entire professional life in semiconductor, what I found is the industry really does invest, and it works both ways. An individual investing in their own career and the employers investing in their individuals, which does happen in this industry. And I think it's such a great place for people because of that. With that, actually, I'd like to turn my next question to Robert, but I also encourage the rest of you to sort of weigh in after his comments, because speaking of investing, the Institute has a really important and a very unique tool called the National Talent Hub. And Robert, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the tool. My understanding is this really is a real-time alignment between course curriculum, job requirements, and also helping job seekers, right, connect with potential employers. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, and also how it coincides with the registered apprenticeship program?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Super excited to be here. Yeah, so we've got obviously a lot of passionate people here with a lot of expertise. Basically, the Talent Hub is the vehicle to get them all in so that we can get this work done and get them to our destination. So, Eric had mentioned something about a plane flying and crashing or falling, but what the Talent Hub is really is that dashboard to kind of keep that plane rising and cruising. So that's really where we are with this. So the Talent Hub is an NSF funded project that's been incorporated into our Gains program for the apprenticeships. It currently has over 100 training programs and employers profiled and active in the system. And I'll explain a little bit about that profiling in a second. But this includes community college partners, high school CTE programs, and university programs, and then all related employers across the whole band of semiconductor supply chain. Um, it also, most importantly, includes all the active apprenticeships that we've developed that are in automation, semiconductor, nanotechnology, design, and manufacturing supply chain. And that's across 17 different states. As Mike had mentioned, the National Talent Hub is a cloud-based system. So it's designed to really create, we often hear the term skills transferability, but really what we look at is skills transparency. And that really allows us to see skills across all STEM-related employers and industries. And it accomplishes this with a comprehensive competency standards database. That's kind of a tongue twister there, but basically what that means is we have prioritized selection of workplace and technical skill standards that are in high demand across industry. And most importantly, we're tracking those skill standards in real time. So every job posting that goes out there, every course description that goes out there, we're tracking what are the skills that are in the highest demand. Um, so how does this help in connecting talent and employers with registered apprenticeships was kind of what the question was. Most importantly, we start with a deep dive analysis of gateway jobs and related career ladder positions. So apprenticeship allows us to do this with the employer where we really look at job descriptions they have and expectations they have within that job and really break that down into what are the things that are key priorities. So using the National Talent Hub, we identify and prioritize what are the skills most directly related to early performance in the gateway jobs? And we also identify what are the skills that are critical for the next ladder up positions. When we establish this prioritization, we are able to map out an apprenticeship in which the on-the-job training and the related technical skills are related technical instruction support skills for early performance in the first half of the apprenticeship. But then the second half of the apprenticeship is designed to establish fundamental skills and performance in the ladder up position. So where those apprentices will land once they complete that apprenticeship. That's really kind of a game changer for us here. So historically, employers have really focused on their critical need positions, and they've focused all their resources into recruiting talent into those critical need positions. The National Talent Hub allows us to identify specific skills ladders that allows us to strategically prepare internal candidates for advancing into those critical need positions. So you have an internal candidate pipeline instead of recruiting externally. That allows the employer to reallocate resources to higher level positions for external recruitment, and then also keep those resources and leverage partnerships to skill up their internal workforce, bringing them into gateway positions. And I want to just kind of define those gateway positions, because what we do with the employers is using the Talent Hub, we redesign gateway positions, but we can also redesign higher level entry point positions depending on what the skills aptitude is for the candidates that we're looking at, so that we get an earlier net gain for those individuals and they're performing in those positions so they can spend more of their time in that position while they're in it to skill up and be ready for the next ladder up position. We want to keep everybody advancing within the organization. The skills transparency contained within the National Talent Hub also allows employers to assess skills from talent applicants. So even applicants that are coming from seemingly unrelated industries such as fast food, retail, or even technology related gigs, or what we call side jobs or volunteering, we can allow and empower the individuals to communicate what were the skills that they developed in those positions or those volunteer activities. So some other things that I just want to hit on real quick, some aspects of the Talent Hub that are most compelling for apprenticeship are, number one, we're really designed to empower the candidate to give a more complete personal skills profile, not just a resume that's filtered for each job or for each employer. The candidates can also view their degree of match for target occupations that they're looking to apply for, and they can do that on a line by line basis, not just look at an obscure job description and see if they're a good fit. Candidates also can view, are there learning gaps that they can close, and they can actually find training programs, including apprenticeships, that will help close that gap so they're a more viable candidate for higher level positions. Um, the skills also have other attributes. We don't see this very often. We just see like skills mentioned in a list. But what we also allow is for employers to signal out to candidates that some of these skills have higher levels of related impact. There might be different levels of skill levels, so not fundamental or advanced, and also what's the frequency of those skills and how they're required in those jobs. So every job, every training program, every talent profile is live real time in the system, and this is important for employers, and it can be customized. So Erica talked about regionalism. So like a process technician in one region might be very different than a process technician, say in California, where it's a very mature industry. We can show that signal, but what we can also do is we can aggregate that data to look at it from a national perspective, from an employer's perspective, or a regional perspective as well. So I think that's really important, is every activity that we do in the Talent Hub, including apprenticeship, helps give us a better strategy that allows us to be more nimble as we see requirements start to change and shift. We can be much more responsive in how we do that because we have real-time data to do that. I do want to kind of pass this back to the experts here because I'm just the dashboard guy with the National Talent Hub.
Well,
But I want to get it back to the passionate people. And so I just wanted to say, like, apprenticeship, when we designed the National Talent Hub, apprenticeship is one aspect of what we're doing, but we found apprenticeship really gives us that unique opportunity to bring all stakeholders together and really do a deep dive into a strategy. And Martha, I just was kind of going to pass it back to you. Um, where have you seen that happen? Like, where have we kind of done a real change in like bringing apprenticeship there and also getting that much more broader band of talent and giving people opportunities that never knew these opportunities existed?
Yeah, and actually, as we pass it back to Martha, though, maybe we can get also Deb involved in the conversation, because I know, Deb, you've been working very closely also with the Institute for City of Phoenix. So maybe you want to weigh in here as well.
Sure, I'd love to. So I wanted to share with you, we are so excited to share. Well, it'll be announced more next week, but that we together have built with the collaboration. And one of the things I think I wanted to make sure was important and to share with you all is I thought I knew a lot until I stepped into this space, right? And there was a lot of work that needed to be done to build an apprenticeship here in Arizona, the first of its kind. So none of us really knew. And advanced manufacturing and semiconductor here in Arizona is just exploding, right? And so we were trying to learn along the way. So these opportunities as a workforce board came to us. And I think I would share that the ability to bring in IIT in leveled us up, right? So we were able to convene as the workforce board. We had the relationships with our community college. You know, we sit in community and economic development, so we're part of bringing employers to Phoenix. So we have this robust relationship. But what we didn't have was the nuts and bolts and all the knowledge that Martha and Robert bring to the table. So I would encourage you, if any of you are looking to build something in this space, that they are the way to go. They made us feel like, I don't know how they were working with other people because they made us feel so important. We got every time an email was sent, they responded immediately. Didn't matter the time of day. We were West Coast, they were East Coast. I know there were nights that they were up very late ending the day with us. And so we are so proud of the work that we all did here today. And to Robert's point about the collaboration, it takes all of us. And I love that they acknowledged that didn't matter what they had done anywhere else. They came in and said, what does Phoenix need? And how do we work in your ecosystem and make it work? And so I really appreciate their support, and we wouldn't be where we are today. And the launching point, as Robert and Martha have talked about, which they did with us, is make sure there's ladders. This is what we'll do, but we know there's a lot more to keep people in the industry. So also, Robert, and thank you, and IIT, thank you so much for the groundbreaking work that we've just done here in a very short amount of time. Thank you so much, Michelle, for the.
You're so sweet, Deb. Thank you. We really have enjoyed this, but as Deb said, we want to work with communities to make sure that what we are doing is helping to build that career ladder within their region and what is exactly needed. And I think we've seen that in a couple of places. By utilizing the National Talent Hub, we've actually been able to go into communities, describe what the ladder is, as I said, graphically show what the ladder might be. But in that HR space, we have been able to explain to the HR people, these are the competencies that individuals need on day one. These are the ones they need on day 201. So as you're looking at your job descriptions, prioritize what it is that you want someone to have when they come to the table. Make sure that you know it's a must have or a like to have, because traditionally, the way that we look at job descriptions and we compare to people's resumes is really not a method for selecting people in. It's a way for saying apples and apples. We don't have apples and apples in our communities anymore. You know, we have bananas and peaches. Where do bananas and peaches meet? What vitamins do they have that are the same? You know, what's the nutritional value? And that's really what that National Talent Hub does, is it explains what it is that a person is capable of doing, what's their capacity to learn, and how are they going to be able to grow. So that was number one. Number two, that investing in people. When we started to advertise roles, not just as gateway positions, but rather as apprenticeship roles, we started to get 10 and 20 times the amount of applicants that we had gotten initially. And the quality of the individual applying went up, because they really had an idea of what it was they were trying to do. And they were not more willing, but I think they understood what it was they needed to share with that employer. And part of it was a desire to be there and a gratefulness for having an opportunity to move into a sector they might not even have known existed, but they already know that there's the capacity not just to have this job, but somebody's already working on the job they're going to have next.
Yeah.
So it really is again, it takes a village. It really does. In California, we worked in a very, very mature ecosystem where people were used to only individuals with 2-year degrees going into these high
Positions.
valued careers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We now have hundreds that are in line to go to work for companies like Western Digital and Applied Materials and all the ones that are all out there and that we all know about. And they're excited. They go to school, they come back at the end of the day and they say, wow, wow, I did
That's
that.
that's really fantastic.
It really is.
I want to go back to your first point because you must have been reading somebody's mind in the audience because we have a question that came in that I think is very relevant to that first point. The question from the audience is, how do you prevent skill level inflation? And what they mean by that is, for example, the stereotype of, I need 5 years experience. That's what's on the job rec, right? 5 years experience for really what is an entry level type of job. How do you help with that in this situation?
Robert, I think I'm going to pass to you for that one because I think that's exactly what you do for companies on a daily basis.
Yeah, so skills inflation is interesting, right? Because I'm looking at it from both ends, right? I think employers are concerned about candidates inflating their skills. That's the one side of the coin. So candidates inflating their skills. What we found historically, especially when we're looking at a wider band of talent, is generally most population do not inflate their skills. And we look at this from a DEI perspective, we see that that's very often the case, is that in a resume, it's a very filtered representation of what someone has done. And they are often instructed or coached to filter what information they put on there. And that tends to exclude a lot of stuff that they might be doing on the side. We know we're living in a gig culture right now. We know a lot of people also have hobbies or other interests, or side jobs. It's important that they're able to track that and represent how that correlates with skills that would be immediately applicable in the job. So I think the program does that in the National Talent Hub. It also allows them to score a level of proficiency. So they're not just listing a skill and allowing you and making you try to determine what level of skill they have. They actually score that as well. On the employer side, I think really what we've been able to do is, especially in apprenticeship, is do a deep dive. And when we're looking at math competencies, is something that often comes up, right? So we look at math and we say, okay, let's take a look at what is the work that they're doing that has a lot of math competency requirements, and what we really find is it's not so much math, it's a little bit of quantitative thinking, because with automation a lot of the math is already done and the job descriptions haven't shifted to represent that. So it's really empowering people to understand the basics of quantitative reasoning and understand what output they're getting, and then make critical decisions based on
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
we're able to do that when we get an inclusive process of looking into that job, and the talent hub kind of forces that, where we say let's just like piece by piece look at these math competencies, and really working with someone that actually supervises that job but also does that job. Is this really needed, or has it been automated?
Very good. We have another question coming in, and I'm just going to throw it out to any one of you who wants to comment. And this one is an interesting one, talking about geographic mobility. To what extent does geographic mobility play into filling the talent gap in the semiconductor industry, and how does that relate to the talent gap?
Yeah, Michelle, I can get started on this one. I'm going to go back to a point that I made in my earlier remarks that there's some diversity here. We know that certain parts of the career ladder are more mobile than others. As you get to higher and higher levels of education, folks are more and more willing to move around. And for gateway sorts of opportunities, folks are not really willing to uproot to the extent that, say a graduate student is. And so we need that to be reflected in where programs are located. And so looking for, if you have a factory that needs 10,000 technicians or something like that, we better have that within a relatively small geographic footprint. But if you're looking for, 100 PhD candidates or whatever, you can take partners from farther away and have a reasonable prospect that will become a talent pipeline for you. The extreme end of this is high-skilled immigration, and I would be criminally negligent in my role if I didn't bring up the role of high-skilled immigration. This is a source of talent, and there are some needs that we need to reform so that we're able to access that talent and provide, good opportunities to the best people in the world right here in the U.S. And that has to be a prong of our solution as well. So at SIA, we are continuing to push on this front to get high-skilled immigration reform in place that actually makes sense, and lending our voice where we can, so that folks on the Hill do truly know how important it is that we're able to access that talent far away for jobs that we might need close by.
Very good. Thank you, Eric. Martha, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I would also say that, as individuals go through registered apprenticeship programs, when they complete, they get a national credential that is recognized across the country. And so if there comes a time in their lives where they have to move, where they have an ill parent or their children need their help somewhere else, having the mobility of that certificate, it's like the 4-year degree of advanced manufacturing trades. They do have the capacity to go, and they know that when they show up at someone's business, someone says, I understand what that is, the rigor and the level of education that you've had, and I feel confident in hiring you for this new role.
Yeah, Michelle, if it's okay, I'd love to just slide in a little bit on that too. Is also on the Talent Hub, we have a lifelong learning profile. So that individual can continue to represent themselves in that National Talent Hub. And I also wanted to point out that the people that apply for an apprenticeship and don't get accepted, Martha had mentioned we get a high volume of people that are responding to these opportunities, and it might be the first time they've actually applied. A high volume of those people will not get that first recruitment. They won't get that first offer. We really are intentionally to be a steward of that candidate pipeline and make sure that within the National Talent Hub, they can identify what is their next step and also see maybe why they did not get that offer, and then empower them with opportunities that will get them better prepared, or maybe even pivot and get into another offer that's more suited to their skills. So we're very interested in doing that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm sorry, Robert, I'm going to have to cut us off there. We're at the end of our hour. A couple things for the audience. First of all, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. This has been recorded, and we will be posting it both on the Institute's website, and it will also go out to our mailing list. So if you registered, you will get a notice on the recording of this panel. The other thing I'd like to ask is, please stay on just for a few short minutes. We'd like to do a survey, very quick survey, so that we understand how you felt about today's panel and how we can make these better for you in the future. And then finally, please stay tuned, because we will be having more of our Accelerator series throughout this year, and we would love to have you back for some of those conversations. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for joining us today. Please be sure to complete the poll questions before leaving the virtual forum. A recording of this event, as well as information on upcoming webinars, will be available on our website. For more information about the National Institute for Innovation and Technology and its programs, visit niit.org.